Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Ellen coming to you from the tropical island of St. Bart's, and you are listening to Light Talk.
This is Dennis, and I'm at the Santa Clara Hilton Hotel overlooking Levi Stadium, the home of next week's Super Bowl 60. You are listening to another historic conversation with a legend in lighting on today's Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. If you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers
And Sister.
That's right, Ellen. Well, welcome everyone to episode 462. And today we are continuing our interview and discussion with Legend of Light, Bob Dickinson. And for those who listened to us last week in episode 461, we actually started this discussion and we kind of ran out of time. So we decided to continue it for this week. So if you can go back and listen to last week if you like, and then listen to this one, or you could just listen to this one, then go back to last week. I don't think it matters. But anyway, it's great to be back. And here we go. So Bob, we've been talking for the past couple of years on Light Talk about AI and how it may affect our industry. Could you tell us how you feel about AI and how do you think you could use it? Because it's going to come. It's here. So what would you like to see to have AI help you as a tool to express your creativity?
You know, that's very interesting because AI probably will go to any depth in the future. But currently AI can do what you're asking, which is give me a blue wash from upstage to downstage. But you could AI actually come up with a never before, so there's no background history for a potential new boyfriend. And could AI come up with an actual programming, not the programming itself, but the visual of how that should be interpreted. And that's probably possible in the future, but I don't think it's there yet. So I do think that lighting designers are in a pretty solid position for now, at least, because I think it's going to be very difficult to achieve that kind of spontaneous creativity. It's again, what does the creative demand? And that's something that is specifically human, at least now.
With the change of technology, with better, much more sensitive cameras and chips and obviously, video and everything going on. And I'm sure that you have some time that you actually sit at home and watch television. There are some television shows out there right now, some series in the past and over the past 10 years, and now that's happening right now, that has very interesting and very sensitive lighting design in it. For instance, Pluribus or Severance, shows like that I think are just beautifully designed. What do you watch and what do you think is good lighting right now that's out there in the world of broadcast lighting?
Well, the important thing that's out there right now in broadcast lighting is the improvement in technology. When I started at 525, lines of resolution and cameras that were 3 tubes, and only the ancient remember this, but there were 3 different primary tubes in the cameras, and there was a prism that reflected the color into the correct tube, and then it mixed into color interpretation. Those tubes were extremely light sensitive. They had a little coating on them, and if that coating got exposed to a bright light, it burned them. And so as a lighting designer, until well into the 90s, if you had a tube camera and a bright light were to hit it, you might burn that tube and it has to be replaced. And even back in the 70s and 80s, those tubes cost $10,000 a piece. So there's $30,000 worth of tubes in a camera. And so lighting designers were very limited about exposure to light sources. especially tiny bright light sources. So now that technology we're in 4K now, and there's no sensitivity in that way to the cameras. And so for 20 years, over 20 years now, we've been able to blast lights right into the lens. So, that is allowed for incredible latitude in any kind of lighting for camera. And, when I see good lighting, especially in theatrical productions, I always, again, get back to my theme. Is this interpreting the moment correctly? What is the moment demanding? And, unfortunately, in television and in film, or, in theatrical releases, and that talent now is so demanding. They have concepts and everything else, but they also have real strong feelings about their face. And we work in a medium in both theatrical releases and dramatic releases and live or music television. We work in a time where about 80 to 90% of any broadcast is done in close-up. And then there's, another 10% in head to toe. And so that we have a lot of, we spend very little time on the wide shot. We all live, especially in any kind of, music-based television, we all live for the wide shot. It's like we build all these cues into all this energy, but basically it comes down to a close-up. And the close-up is telling the story much more than the rest of it. And even in concerts where they have, video reinforcement of the talent, for the viewer out there in the house, they're still on a wide shot, even though they have a close-up of the face up on the screen. They're still on a wide shot. But when you're watching it at home, you're spending the time, where you've been directed, which is into a close-up. So talent is very demanding now. And the more important the talent, the greater influence they have. And most of them, not all of them, are really concerned about looking young. They want to look the best they can. And, I fortunately have a reputation I think is somewhat deserved for making people look really good in close-up. And so that's a pressure that's on any cinematographer or lighting designer is how do you manage the close-up? You want it to be appropriate to the moment creatively, but you also have demands from the talent as to how it should look. And like on an award show, like the Oscars or something, it's just a foregone conclusion. Whoever steps up there wants to look good. Yet we who are interpreting it think about it should have some modeling. It should have some, this or that give it a more appropriate look for the moment, for what the moment is demanding. And so like on the Oscars or anything, we do, we don't just turn on the same three lights to light a face when they come to the mic. We try to, interpret what that face is like. And, it's lighting is everything in close-up. I'll tell a quick story that this is from my early career. I was asked to do an Elizabeth Taylor special. And I did it out here in the Coachella Valley in a theater. And I knew it was Elizabeth Taylor. And so I thought, I've got to get this right. I got to make her look absolutely beautiful. And this is earlier in my career. And so I hung all these special lights and follow spots and everything at these angles that were low and really, really, I thought would be flattering and soft. And And so Elizabeth Taylor refused to come in and do the rehearsal or anything else. We just saw her the night of the taping. And that's what we used to call, when we did anything, we call it tapings instead of recordings, because there's actual tape rolling around in a reel. It's just hard to imagine we even did anything the way the technology we had to deal with. But she walked out there on stage, and Elizabeth Taylor had approximately 4 necks, and she was very plump. And I had lit her so evenly and so low of an angle that those 4 chins all separately expressed themselves visually. And I realized that if I had put in a 30-degree angle follow spot on her one, she would have looked beautiful. But instead, I highlighted all the stuff underneath, but
That's because you're a maverick.
What did she say?
Well, I never heard directly from her because it was later in life, and she just was, But I was like mortified. What have I done? She looks so great in National Velvet, and she suddenly.
So, Bob, when you're lighting those Oscar lecterns, do you have multiple lights hanging at different angles to compensate, so you can choose the right one for the face that's showing up at the lectern?
Yes, exactly. You've got faces of different black faces, white faces. People whose skin tone tends to be amber, and so that's where a little research helps you a lot. Build in the options in the design. The 18 degree, the 20 degree, the 26 degree, and so on. Get as many options as you have for the face, then fill light. We want to create a little level of drama, some contrast in faces when possible. And on certain faces, it's unnecessary or destructive. And so, yes, you need to know who's going to walk up there. But then, damn it, it's an award show. There are 5 nominees, and you don't know who's going to win. And so that is the minute they say, they say Timothy Chalamet, I think, fine. We can just leave everything as is. But if it's somebody who needs a lot of help, then quickly a decision has to be made. We have to go to the secret key light and take out the fill or whatever.
Color temperature is obviously important, and with LED, we've had a lot of development happening with first starting with poor LEDs and now moving to much better ones. Is there any specific lighting equipment that you must have? I mean, for many years, I always wanted some specific type of light, like a Viper. Like, okay, I got to have a Viper, because that gives you a nice clean light. Is there anything that you would want to have in your tool belt?
The truth is that that when the film industry, when color was introduced, they needed a color temperature that was able to be with the emulsion films, was within a range that they could deal with in the lab and make a face look real. So the film industry used primarily incandescent lights. Well, basically the highest color temperature you could have taken in those days, we're getting into the weeds here, I'm sorry, was with the filament was 3,200 degrees Kelvin. After that, it would just last, shorter and shorter until it didn't last at all. So 3,200 degrees Kelvin was the perfect fit. And so that became the standard. And when color television came around, 3,200 degrees Kelvin was what all the tubes were built for. And that was the native color for a face. And that existed forever. But the newer bulb types came out, with especially in smaller bulbs, because obviously arc sources like old follow spots were much higher in the 6,000 degree.
Right.
And so we would, use a combination of gels to get them down to 3,200 degrees Kelvin. So that was the benchmark. And, really into the 2000s still, I think, everyone just assumed 3,200 degrees Kelvin. Plus all the incandescent instruments like old PARs were natively 3,200 degrees Kelvin. As newer bulb or light sources came out, we were able to start drifting a little bit, and the cameras, had evolved, and they could handle any color temperature you want. They no longer needed to filter down just to go outside. It was an adjustment. And so we kind of were lost for a long time as to where to go with this, because no one uses incandescent instrumentation on a theatrical stage or on a television live broadcast stage. It's all LEDs of some kind. So we started to adapt that, and the early Verilites and the like, they used such a combination of high discharge instrumentation. And remember these HTI, I think they were bulbs and things that were just impossible.
They would change color.
It was in front of you.
They age.
Like,
right in front of you.
Well, no, it was like, and you turn on 10 of them and you had a rainbow of white.
That's right.
It was like,
that's right.
And, we don't live in that anymore. And so I don't have the passion for specific instrumentation as much as I did. The instruments are just so sophisticated, and the range of performance options they have is astounding. And so it's really not that big of a concern to me anymore, what kind of instrument it is, because I can usually achieve where I feel comfortable. And where I'm feeling comfortable right now is 4,200 degrees Kelvin. I could light shows at just native 6,000, but I don't think that looks good for the audience that's sitting out there. But anything lower gets muddy looking. And plus, as the world now, especially we deal with screens so much, if you were to light anymore at 3,200 degrees Kelvin, the screen cannot be easily adapted to achieve that. It didn't used to be. Now they can do anything as well. But 4,200 degrees Kelvin is what I use now, and that's no problem for the automated or any kind of LED instrument to be able to give us that color.
Plus, it's good for the costumes as well. It's good for dresses and for fabric.
Well, and the thing, again, getting back to the audience, if your color temperature is too high and someone walks out in a beautiful red dress, to the naked eye, it's not as robust, but if it's down too low and someone walks out in blue, it looks muddy on the blue. So if you take into consideration the live audience, you want to get something that is a hybrid between those and that's where I do 4,200 degree Kelvin.
It also involves really close cooperation between the graphic artists who are doing the content in all those video walls and our video shaders that, as you well know, I'm sure you have incredible cooperation with your video shader.
Yeah, the important thing is, again, the latitude is there now in the technology. It used to be that LED screens. And, you have to remember, we used to deal with 12 mil LEDs. I mean, they were just like giant pimples of light behind close up. And, now we're at, these incredibly
0.8.
More.
Something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're really fine. And the latitude of their color interpretation is really, really easy to do. And it's actually the content creator is not as important as the person who sets up the screens initially, and to make sure we are in agreement with the screens department as to what the benchmark is. White is 4,200 degree Kelvin, and then everything gets, interpreted from there. And, it's a funny thing. This is a lighting designer, and young lighting designers probably understand this, is that as a lighting designer in the 20 odd years ago, you had a lot of hard scenery, and the lighting designer interpreted the moment outside of the close-up, what that was going to look like, what the intensity, the tone, the angle, and so the lighting designer had a great deal of authority out of the overall outcome of the visual. Now there's so much virtual content behind people, and even shows like the Oscars can't afford to build the kind of scenery they used to, and it's not to their advantage. And so they create, beautiful, just like anything else, they create it virtually. Well, that takes a lot of import potentially away from the lighting designer. And it's been an interesting shift in the overall creative process. Not that the lighting designer is not still extremely important, has a great deal of influence, but they're not interpreting the entire visual the way that they used to be. And in many ways, though, that's something where a lighting designer working with a content creator, or the lighting designer be the content creator, allows that kind of harmony and control over the moment. If there's agreement, you're not fighting one another, the lighting designer and the content creator. It's a different world now.
It's a different world, but it's become a difficult world, because I'm seeing more and more, and I'm sure you see the same thing, where the content creators want to put virtual lights into their content in the virtual walls, and they don't really understand lighting design. So it becomes an argument about how those virtual lights service the story and how they get used.
I think it's actually really a problem. It's my biggest problem right now is when they start introducing virtual lights and the effect of virtual lights, especially what's supposed to be graphic lights, and they start cueing it in manners that I think are highly inappropriate. I don't know if we talked about color earlier, but I feel really passionately that color used to be the most expensive thing that a lighting designer could offer. And so it had to be really used with discipline. Now color is just cheap. It's just a button away. And it is, possibly the biggest, besides intensity and angle, color is the biggest tool for a lighting designer has. And separate from screens, if you put every color into every song, then how are you going to just make that song distinct from the next song and the next song after that? If you have to be super disciplined with color, and to pour it on everything like ketchup is inappropriate. So if I approach something with that disciplined kind of perspective, and then the screens are doing blue and green and and whatever, it's like it no longer has, there's no longer design there.
How do we handle that, though, Bob? I mean, I see it a lot lately, and I see it in shows where I have colleagues of ours who are really talented lighting designers, but virtual lighting is being done by graphic artists who don't understand it. I think you hit on it early on when you said the lighting designer should be doing the content, but how do we drive it in that direction?
Well, time, if your lighting designer is willing to do it, and they have the kind of bosses who's hiring them that are willing to have the lighting designer have that level of control, where content and lighting are in one creative mind, or if the lighting designer spends the time to work with the content creators to make sure that they are actually building the cues together. Because to be honest with you, lighting is a big hat to wear. And I think both can get short shrift if both lighting and screens are done by the same person, or same creative body. of course, time is, relative. If you're doing a kind of project where you have months to develop both lighting, cues, and content, then yes, one person can do it. But if you're doing something where, like a music show, or where you don't even get the song or whatever the creative is until days before it's actually going to be on air, then the two jobs could not be done by one person. And that's where dialogue and cooperation and a producer who insists on it makes a difference.
It's really a teamwork. I know that when shows I don't do both. The content designer is in the theater and I'm lighting the show with the content there. The problem is when the content's not done yet, you got to push through. So, okay, this is going to be a blue background, blah, blah, blah. So this is what I'm going to do. And now make sure when the content's there that it works. You know what I mean?
But the dialogue is there. And that's important.
The dialogue is there. Yes.
You view yourselves as equals and let's discuss it. If they have a passionate reason why they think it should be, virtual flashing pink, shafts, then let's talk about that. But it is tough because the content, we make a change and boom, 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 you see it. But if they want to make a change, okay, we'll start rendering this, and it's days.
But the content in virtual world and the lighting, the virtual lighting, needs to match the lighting in the real world. And the younger content creators that I'm experiencing now, they don't seem to get that. And collaboration is a word they don't seem to understand.
2D has to match 3D. That's what I say.
Perhaps we could chat a little bit about the Athens Olympics.
Getting to the Athens Olympics. Okay. What happened was I had done the Salt Lake City Olympics with Don Mischer, and who is truly one of the greatest television producers of all time. Don Mischer was a man who was always wanted to look at what the creative was trying to say. What is the emotion we're trying to deliver here? And he did understand that emotion is a lot about words, but it's a lot about visual. And so he was really a joy to work with because he was very visually, yeah. And so I got a call from the Athens people, and they said, we'd like you to come in for a meeting. And I went in and I met with Dimitri, who is the creative designer, director for the production in Greece, in Athens, and his lighting director, Eleftheria. And I walked into a meeting with them, and that kind of rare simpatico just happened. That they actually felt the same way I did, that, that we should not do things because they're easy or visually stimulating. We should examine what is trying to be said, and let's do things from that approach. And so I started to work on the Olympics. They hired me that day. It was just really a great experience. It came at great cost to me professionally because I had to turn down so much work. But I just knew that this was a lifetime possibility to create something significant. And so I went through this entire process, and this was not a straightforward, now we bring in the flags, and this is a celebration of Greek cooking, kind of, which Olympic ceremonies can be about, these kind of banal subjects. That he was telling a much more ethereal message is what he wanted to do. And so I started to work with him, and it was in an awkward building. And, our creativity is limited so much by the actual structure that we're doing it in. And this building was a famous architect, Calatrava, had designed it, and he had this partial roof that covered the audience, and it was, very voluptuous and arcing, and also not very load bearing. And besides that, you had balcony rails, and of course, anything you can do from the floor. Yeah. And, his concept was have a sea, because Greek life is all about the sea. And so you had this sea in the center of the arena. When the audience came in, they were looking down on a massive soccer stadium that's full of water, placidly reflecting. And so, as the creative evolved, he had this thing that was going to come up out of the center of the ocean or the sea that was a head. He wanted this head to rise out of the sea. Now, this head was a 5,000-year-old piece that was discovered on an island, and they were buried with people. And it was heavily damaged. In other words, this chip was out of it. But it's such an elegant, beautiful reflection on Greek culture. This is single thing. So you wanted it to rise out of the center. So how do we go about revealing it, and how do we interpret this? And there's a lot of, by the way, this is like 70 feet high. This is just a mammoth, piece that rises out of the ocean or out of the sea. How do you interpret that? And what I came up with, you interpret it with the light of life. In other words, shades of white light, and not use any kind of color whatsoever. Then with shades of white light, what is the only other major tool you have is angle and intensity. And so out of it, we designed that Greek, and with the help, by the way, of Eleftheria Deco, who is the Greek lighting designer, who understood the culture and what they were trying to say. I approached it with this. This is not about what I think this is. This is about what a Greek perspective on history is. And so that's how I lit it. And it was very difficult because of angle and all those budget limitations, everything else. But the head was the focus of it. To be honest with you, it was very satisfying lighting design, and I really, really respected the work I did. I was not part of the culture, but I was honored actually to be asked to interpret what Greece is. And so it was really a great project for me. And I think that that and ironically the Euro Games, the only Euro Games that were done from Baku, Azerbaijan, that was also a place where I was able to use lighting where it didn't look like lighting, where it was but incredibly powerful. You should watch it. It is quite dramatic. And again, the same creative producer, Dimitri, was produced both of them. But high aspiration creative that is really hard to feed to a world audience. But the lesson I learned from that is, if what you're doing is interesting and unusual, you don't necessarily need to assume your audience is from that or understands it, but they really are enjoying feeling it. And that's the approach that he used, and I think it was rather successful. So it's a little boring, I guess.
Oh,
That's,
no, it's wonderful to hear what you consider the highlight of a career that's so full of incredible high points. But I'd like to hear how you formed Full Flood back in 1990 after leaving IFA West.
yes. I was struggling at the time. Just a personal thing that I wanted to design, but I kept being told by, well, at the time it was Collages Group, that we could not afford to do it that way. And so I had no control over the budget. And I also sort of believed, maybe unnecessarily or incorrectly, that I was on a different wavelength creatively from the design perspective of the Collages Group. And so I just decided I needed to be on my own, where I could control my lighting budgets. And so I formed Full Flood. And it was actually, I believe it was very welcomed by the industry, because I started delivering consistent lighting design that was appropriate, but also with the necessary tools to be able to do it. And so, yeah, budget is always at odds with creativity. I mean, this is the way it is. But the more you can, as a designer, have some control and authority over the budget, the greater latitude you have in your creativity.
Where do you see Full Flood going as the industry continues to change and grow?
Well, let's face it, I'm 72 years old. I've had this phenomenal career that I've really enjoyed. And I think I had some impact on this industry that, and I really try to be open with students and others as to, how I achieved that and what my philosophies are. But it is always time for a younger generation to come in. And to be frank with you, during the pandemic, I realized I've hardly lived. And now all of a sudden I can't do anything. I can't go to the grocery store. But it made me think that I really need to, while I'm still vital and able to, I need to step back and enjoy my life. And fortunately, though, I have mentored several significant designers, of which I think Noah Mitz is just astounding. He is a true designer in the way that we've discussed here. And so he is actually going to be taking Full Flood. And it's going to be Noah Mitz sometime in the future will be Full Flood. And I'm happy that it's going to such a creative and dynamic lighting designer.
Noah's an incredible talent, really is.
Speaking of students, let's end this with a few words of wisdom that you may have for, our younger listeners, who are maybe 18, 19, 20 years old, either in college now or even high school, who want to be a lighting designer, and maybe they want to get into broadcast lighting. Do you have any words of wisdom that you could give them?
Yeah. First of all, don't worry about your paycheck. Really, that is the least thing you should be worrying about, how much you're getting paid. Just do whatever it takes and put in as much energy as you have to get the experience. Because even when things don't necessarily go well, at least it's experience. Follow your gut in regard to design and really try to respect the moment. What is the moment trying to say? I would say that having any opportunity possible to work with older designers to pick up their process because when it comes down to it, ultimately, the only way you're going to succeed, though, is having a process that is functional, that actually works. Also, the other thing which I harp on is be disciplined with your cues, really, in regard to music or even anything that involves changing the atmosphere. Be really disciplined with them. Overcuing and is one of the biggest problems I see currently in television and in popular music. Broadway's a little bit different, but yeah, overcuing is just tragically occurring.
It's kind of a waste of time because it's self-defeating in a way.
Well, and to the audience, it's numbing. It's numbing. You know that you cue, and there's only so many tools you have, and they get overused quickly, and so now they stop having meaning. Discipline cues. Wait for the moment, and then express it once, or but don't overcue, don't overcolor.
You just named the episode, my friend. I think that's beautiful. It really is. It's really, really wise.
No, I think the name of the episode is I was working with this asshole.
I don't think so. We got to be inspiring, not real. We don't want to get too real here.
Yeah, but I don't want to say that is the only asshole. They're far too common.
There are many.
What I wanted to end with was a quote that I had culled from an interview that Bob had done when he was asked his design style. And he said, "I don't key light in a predictable manner. I do it in an appropriate manner." And I think that's what it's all about. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for being here today. It's a real service to our listeners and an honor to us to have you on our show. And it's taken 9 years, but you finally made it, damn it. We finally got some time out of you. Thank you so much.
We wore him down.
And listen, you're in the LA area. We should get together, get on your yacht. I go to Lake Arrowhead all the time, man.
Well, you're welcome. Seriously,
You seem like a lot of fun, and I like that.
Oh, yeah. And also, by the way, I'm not in LA anymore. I'm actually Palm Springs and Lake Arrowhead. So
Lori and I are going to be in Palm Springs in a couple of weeks for the Modernism Week.
Oh, my goodness. Well, give me a call. We'll have lunch, and you can come by and see the house or
awesome.
Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you putting up with me. Thank you.
Putting up with you? Are you kidding me? This is great. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you do decide to litigate, you will have to deal with me, Snoot, from the Snoot Group. And don't get it twisted. Just because I married one of these losers does not mean I will go easy on you. So don't with me.
This has been a very special Light Talk, coming to you from multiple locations in California: Palm Springs, the Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, Santa Clara, plus the tropical paradise of St. Bart's, and last but not least, the Lone Star State.
So be sure to join us next week when we dive into more lighting shenanigans and serve up a fresh, piping hot casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
Thanks again to our friend Bob Dickinson, and we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Thank you, Bob.
See ya.